Hey everybody, and welcome to Stock About This. I'm going to be covering some stock market breaking news alerts, kind of like updates on the most recent news for the stimulus bill and all that kind of fun stuff. As of today, Blitzer and Pelosi were talking, and a lot of questionable responses here, but I'm going to play them back for you guys and share my own input afterwards. So make sure to listen through the whole video to get the whole impact. I'm going to do little casual pauses here and there to share that input as the video goes on.
As you know, there are Americans who are being evicted from their homes. They can't pay the rent. Many Americans are waiting in food lines for the first time in their lives. Can you look them in the eye, Madam Speaker, and explain why you don't want to?
Just looking at her smile there, it's questionable as to how much she actually really cares. It's almost like she's about to burst out in laughter, which is very unusual considering the scenario for this case here. But we're going to go into it a little bit more to play her response.
Well, because, thank you very much, Wolf, and I hope you'll ask the same question of the Republicans about why they don't really want to meet the needs of the American people. But let me say to those people, because all of my colleagues, we represent these people. I have for over 30 years represented my constituents. I know what their needs are. I listen to them, and their needs are not addressed in the president's proposal. So when you say to me, why don't you accept theirs?
Now, this is an interesting statement that she just made, considering she was for the airline and PPP bills and the one-off stimulus check, but since they refused to pass her bloated bill for the Democrat side, she's basically saying that they're refusing to meet the needs of the American people, but she was for these things less than a week or two before. And as standalone bills, they're not going to affect anything. Munchin recently said today that basically they have about $130 billion to $300 billion to still spend, that if Congress passes anything, they can get those funds dispersed as of tomorrow for these, these businesses and these people. But I'm going to go on a little bit more with this video just for you guys to listen in.
Why don't they accept ours? Our legislation is there to do three things primarily: to honor our workers, honor our heroes, our healthcare workers, our police and fire first responders, our teachers, our transportation, sanitation, food workers, the people who make our lives work. We couldn't be doing what we're doing without them. Many of them have risked their lives so that to save lives, and now they will lose their jobs because McConnell says let the states go bankrupt.
Excuse me for interrupting,
let the states go bankrupt.
Madam Speaker, but they really need the money right now, and even members of your own.
I understand that, but
even members of your own caucus. Even members of your own caucus, Madam Speaker, want to accept this deal. $1.8 trillion. Congressman Ro Khanna, for example. But let me just quote Ro Khanna, a man you know well. I assume you admire him. He's a Democrat. And he just said this. He said, people in need can't wait until February. $1.8 trillion is significant and more than twice the Obama stimulus. Make a deal. Put the ball in McConnell court. So what do you say to
This is an interesting one, too, as well. I covered in another video that essentially a lot of the Democrats are for this updated bill. It seems that Pelosi is the one that's delaying it for whatever the reason, probably because she doesn't get all that extra bloated stuff that she wants to add into it. But her response is very interesting here, so let me play it back for you.
What I say to you is, I don't know why you're always an apologist, and many of your colleagues apologists for the Republican position. Ro Khanna, that's nice.
See, the interesting statement about this is on her side, and she's trying to slant it as it's more on the Republican side, and that's not at all what he just said. So she's either completely missing the statement or she's purposely misdirecting it because it makes her look bad, but by misdirecting it, it makes her look worse.
That isn't what we're going to do, and nobody's waiting till February. I want this very much now because people need help now. But it's no use giving them
and people need help now, so on and so forth.
Sponsored by TickStrike. TickStrike allows you to actually hear order flow in futures, forex, and stock instruments.
Yeah, sorry about that. I have another page in the background there. But essentially, she's saying she wants this
Get a free trial at tickstrike.com.
Sorry for that interruption. But generally, what she's saying is basically that she wants a deal made, but at the same time, uh, she's denied both standalone bills for both the stimulus check and the standalone bill for the PPP and airlines, which has nothing bloated attached to it. It's literally just an airline and PPP bill, and they already said that they have the funds there ready to go. So it's unusual why she's refusing to pass that in particular. But then she goes on a little bit more of a tangent here. I'll play back here.
False thing. Just because the president wants to put a check with his name on it in the mail, that we should not be doing all we can to help people pay the rent, put food on the table, to enhance benefits that they don't.
Now, see, if she cared about that, then she would have accepted the standalone bill that Trump proposed. But I'm going to let it play out a little bit more for you guys to listen in on.
Lose their jobs if they're state and local. We're talking about the consequences of a pandemic, the symptoms of a problem that the president refuses to address.
But you know,
and that is the coronavirus.
We know
that is
we
the
know
coronavirus.
the problem out there, but there are millions of Americans who have lost their jobs. They can't pay the rent. Their kids need the food.
That's right, and that's what we're trying to get done.
$1.8 trillion, and the president just tweeted, stimulus, go big or go home. He wants even more right now, so why not work out a deal with him, and don't let the perfect, as they say here in Washington, be the enemy of the good.
Well, I will not let the wrong be the enemy of the right.
What's wrong with $1.8 trillion?
Well, you know what? Do you have any idea what the difference is between the spending that they have in their bill and that we have in our bill? Do you realize that they have come back and said all these?
The difference is that basically Pelosi wants bloated stuff. Democrats wanted a little bit more, but they're happy to meet in the middle with the Republicans. But Pelosi still seems to want to delay all of this for whatever the reason.
Things for child tax credits and earned income tax credits, for helping people who have lost their jobs, are eliminated in their bill. Do you realize they pay no respect to the fact that child care is very important for people whose children cannot go to school because they're doing remote learning, and yet they minimize the need for child care, which is the threshold with which people, mothers and fathers, can go to work if.
Now, the interesting statement about this is she brings up all this, but she's ignoring the fact of the two standalone bills that Trump already brought up. And for whatever the reason, they were just completely denied, despite the fact that she was full in agreement with Trump and Republicans just 2 weeks ago. Even the airlines and defense stocks pumped on her hopefulness of the airline PPP bill and all that, that bill portion just alone she was for, but now she's against it. Even though it was a standalone bill, it has no other extra bloated stuff, but even still.
They have that. Do you have any idea of how
that's precisely why, Madam Speaker,
they're concerned?
That's why it's so important right now. Yesterday I spoke to Andrew Yang, who says the same thing. It's not everything you want,
but you know what?
There's a lot there.
Basically, Blitzer's right. It's, they're not going to get exactly what they want. They should be trying to pass at least something, and then later on, they can work on the effort to pass the rest of it into the next year. They have a lot of funds just sitting around not being utilized that can be benefiting these individuals, can be benefiting these businesses, can be benefiting the airlines, and all these places that are going to potentially lose their job because Pelosi disagrees with a little bit more extra on the bill.
Honest to God, you really, I can't get over it because Andrew Yang, he's lovely. Ro Khanna, he's lovely. They are not negotiating this situation. They have no idea of the particulars. They have no idea of what the language is here. I didn't come over here to have, so you're the apologist for the Obama, excuse me. God forbid.
Madam Speaker,
I'm
not an apologist. I'm asking you serious questions because so many people are in desperate need right now. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
When was the last time?
Let me respond to you.
Let me ask you, when was the last time, Madam Speaker, when was the last time you spoke with the president about this?
I don't speak to the president. Speak with his representative.
Why not call him and say, Mr. President, let's work out a deal. It's not going to be everything you want, not going to be everything I want, but there are so many Americans right now who are in desperate need. Let's make a deal.
What makes me amused if it weren't so sad, is how you all think that you know more about the suffering of the American people than those of us who are elected by them to represent them at that table. It is unfortunate that we do not have shared values with this White House and that they have in their bill, why don't you talk about in their bill, a tax break for the wealthiest families in the country while they cut out the earned income tax credit for the poorest families in our country and the poorest children in our country. That we have to fight with them to get them to address.
And now this is interesting considering her husband seemed to have reacted to trading information both prior, allegedly, of last year before closing out positions and then opening positions near the very bottom in March here for trading. And then she has some questionable salary that, once again, allegedly seems to be more than what she gets paid on a year-to-year basis, making me wonder what back-end deal she might be up to. So making these statements seems a little bit counterintuitive, just in my opinion anyways.
The coronavirus crisis, because they have said it was a hoax, it was magical, it was a miracle, it was going to cure it. It hasn't. And that's why we find ourselves in this situation. I feel very confident about the knowledge that I bring to this, but more importantly, the knowledge that my chairs, our chairs of jurisdiction.
Basically, she just kind of rants on for the next 5-10 minutes about all this stuff and how the Republicans are the ones delaying it. But both the Republicans and the Democrats seem to be on the same side. It seems that Pelosi is the only one delaying this at this point. We're going to hop into a portion of this video here that essentially Steve Mnuchin talked basically at the Milken Institute Global Conference today, and essentially he made a lot of statements here, basically that they have $300 billion in funds available to be repurposed for whatever reason. Even smaller bills should be getting paid out. A lot of things can be easily passed. The PPP airline thing, even the one-time stimulus, although it's not going to be a fix, it'll be better than nothing that the American people are currently getting. But this ultimately is just my opinion. Feel free to share in the comments below your personal opinions on what you think about, Pelosi and Blitzer.